All right. All right. Welcome to the Military Retirement Podcast. Happy to be here. Missed the last few Sundays for a good reason, though. I went out with my wife and we celebrated our 19th anniversary over in Guatemala. So, beautiful place, beautiful area. I'm back in pocket now, uh, back with the podcast. So, we're streaming live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on the Green Logbook YouTube channel, and on the Military Retirement Podcast YouTube channel. This whole podcast is part of the Wreaths Across America Radio Network. So, jump on with them. They're on iHeartRadio. So we have a time slot there. I believe it's Friday nights. But that reaches a whole another set of veterans out there who listen to iHeartRadio and Wreaths Across America. Today, got a special guest. He runs Wild Bill's Craft Brewery, or excuse me, beverage company. Mike Quilty, former Navy turned CEO. Let's bring him to the stage. Mike,
Hello,
how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. So, yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself, man, because I get so many questions about this. Hey, I'm trying to start a business. I really have the service, in my heart, and I want to contribute some way, shape, or form. I just don't know how to do it. But you, my man, did
Yeah.
it. You went from serving in the Navy, and then you decided, hey, look, I need to open something up of my own due to my experiences. Kind of walk me through a little bit of how that
Got it.
happened.
So the background here is I grew up in upstate New York, went to the Naval Academy. Out of the Naval Academy, served, was an officer on a submarine for 5 years, and realized pretty early on in that gig that I was not long term for doing that. I loved my
Right.
service. I loved the people I was with and the whole experience, but I couldn't make a career of it. And people that say, "Oh, how do you even last underwater on a submarine for a day, a week, or a month?" The answer is it's really hard. So
Yeah.
the people that can do that for a career are really, really special. So out of the Navy, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I went back to school. Like, well, I'll just go back to school and meet people.
Hmm.
And while at school, I had a professor by the name of Reggie Herzlinger, who really focused on healthcare. And I took a lot of her healthcare classes, and she said to us, ladies and gentlemen, if any of you want a career in healthcare, there's a lot of jobs and there's a lot to do. It's a big piece of the economy. I would have never considered it. I never would have known to look in the healthcare industry, but I had this professor who really encouraged us. I did my summer between classes, I
Hmm.
worked at a hospital. So I kind of got a hospital experience. And then upon kind of graduation, I did, once again, not completely knowing what I wanted to do, I worked in consulting. So I took a consulting job, and the benefit of that is I had a chance to work for lots of companies in lots of sub industries within healthcare. So I worked for an insurance company, I worked for a medical group, I worked for a nursing home chain, and and as I was working and I was doing this consulting thing, I bumped into a person who I had never known. I was just assigned to work with him, and
Sure.
he ended up becoming my mentor. And it was my mentor who said to me, maybe 2 years into consulting work, "You should really think about being an entrepreneur." And I can honestly say, I had never really. I knew the word. I mean, I've heard
Yeah.
people say, give the expressions of many, many years ago. People didn't know what entrepreneurship was at all, and now it's, of course, a thing. But
Right.
I had never really seriously considered it. And my mentor actually wrote out a check for me and said, "If you want to start a company, I'll be your first. I'll be the first person to help you." And I really um, credit him for seeing that in me. And we had worked together for well over a year. And he's like, "I think you would," and he had been an entrepreneur. He was also did consulting. And he said, "I think you do really well at it." Um, so when you have the vote of confidence of somebody you know and trust who says you can do it means all the world. Now, I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs at all. And I didn't have my family were firemen, cops, and nurses. So
Okay.
I never really, never had been exposed to it.
Now, did he what did he see in you? Did he ever explain that? Like what did he see in you that prompted him to say, "You, my friend, should be an entrepreneur"?
Yeah, I think the big piece is when you do consulting, you get paid, as you know, you've heard, people who've been consulting,
Hmm.
you get paid a lot of money to tell
Yeah.
people what to do that they
Hmm.
don't ultimately do. And I think one of the things he saw in me was just the willingness and ability to actually do it. And the doing it is the hard part. It's the perseverance. And I think he knew a little bit. He knew about my story in the military, and certainly not giving up during plebe summer, and not giving up in the training, and not giving up on the submarine, and making it through school. So I think the big pieces were, um, you know, had the ability to push through and persevere. And I do think that's a
Sure.
huge, for entrepreneurship in my mind. The idea is about 10th on the list. The who the person is, their ability to push through, and the people they surround themselves with is everything. And I was, and I,
Yeah.
and I had, for me, it was, having, so my mentor introduced me to other people who had started businesses. And as I
Hmm.
learned about it and realized, my goodness, people who are somewhat like me, who didn't go
Hmm.
to school for entrepreneurship, actually started businesses. And then that opened my eyes to the idea of, well, as you're out and about, keep your eyes open. And what my mentor was like, and I didn't know what, like everybody, I don't know, what am I going to start a business doing? I don't have
Right.
any ideas. But his guidance was, when you see it, you'll know it. And
Hmm.
talk to other entrepreneurs and ask them their story. And I do think it was a lot of, they were looking and looking and looking. They had their eyes open. Most of us go through life, and you're there, but you're not really paying attention. And I was
Yeah.
super, super, super tuned in to pay attention. And the story of kind of my idea, I suppose you'll want to hear that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of an interesting. So
I want to hear it
mine,
all.
yeah. So mine was, I was working for a health plan at the time, and the client I was working with was a up and coming executive at this health
Hmm.
plan, and he would go on to become the CEO. So, in addition to pushing through and surrounding yourself with the right people, there's the element of just pure luck. So, I drew straws out of a hat. I got hooked up to work on this project. The person I worked with, his name was Mike. He was an up and comer within the organization. I worked directly with him, and I got exposed in a 1 year period to 20 years worth of just seeing stuff. And he was a very talented executive. And I remember the day. It was one of those moment in times. I was in a meeting, and the idea for the company just presented itself. And we were in a conference room. The health plan I was working with had hired us to find different vendors for different solutions they needed. And on
Hmm.
the whiteboard, Mike wrote 2 by 2 and like drew out, the healthcare industry and some of the things they were looking for, and put a
Sure.
big circle and said, "This is what we need. We need somebody who can do this." And um, and he actually wrote it out. It was like on a whiteboard. And I turned to my buddy, my friend, doctor friend, and said, I understand what he's saying, and I think I know how to do that. Like, and the interesting thing is, because my partner and I, the doctor that I worked with, and my mentor as well, we had worked all throughout the healthcare industry. We had worked in nursing homes, medical groups, hospitals, and insurance companies. When Mike stood up, the client stood up and said, "This is what I need," and drew it. Unless you knew all those other pieces of the industry, you wouldn't even be able to have a conversation with him. But when he
Right.
described something, we knew the language. And I had a nursing home chain called Mariner was my client for
Hmm.
maybe a year. And so I knew that whole side and their reimbursement. I had worked with an insurance company. I'd worked with a hospital system in New Jersey and with a medical group in New York. So it was one of those things where, right place, right time, uh, Mike giving us the idea, and then I thought to myself, well, my mentor said if I got the idea, he would help fund it. And so, within 6 months, I quit my job and, did the whole, how do you start a company, with asking people. And I bought books like back in the day, you weren't really necessarily going on the internet asking, ChatGPT couldn't give you a startup guide. So,
And around what year was this?
This was 1998, 1999.
Okay.
So the internet was a thing for 2 years, and
Yep.
Amazon was just coming into being, but there was no AI. There was, you remember.
Yeah. So you had to hit the
yeah.
books. Yeah.
So I hit the books, and I bought the books, and more than anything, the talking to other entrepreneurs. And I was told the one of the tricks I was told is, when you talk to an entrepreneur and you're asking him about his or her experience, and it's a really good conversation, end the call by asking, hey, do you have 3 other people I could talk to? And that's like a game changer, because that person, the likelihood of that person referring you to another good person is pretty strong. And if you ask for 3, you'll at least get 1 or 2. But that was the old-fashioned way of getting network, was being introduced around. But once we had the idea, our company was our own money, friends and family money, angel money. We ended up doing 2 rounds of venture capital, and it was at the end of the day, it was a 12-year overnight success. So we lost money. We raised money. People said that we were crazy. People didn't. What we were doing was at the time was called the physician practice management space, and it was very out of vogue because 2 large public physician practice management companies had gone bust around the time we were starting ours. And the truth is, everything in life is timing. And those 2 companies, they started too early. They went too big. They went public. They failed. Yeah. So the market, the ability to raise money, when we were raising money for basically a physician's practice management, physician staffing business, it was really hard. But the people that we got to invest in the story were very, like, they had to have drunk in the Kool-Aid and believed it, because you were definitely, they were definitely swimming upstream and definitely counterculture. So I did learn it's okay when you have passion and conviction in something, and I did, like the idea of the business, I just knew it would work. And there were lots of naysayers, but when people actually really understood the problem at the level that we did, people would come around. But it was, over the first 7 years of the business, we lost millions of dollars year after year. And it was brutally hard. And we had we definitely did the can't make payroll, can't give year-end bonuses. Looking back, we were very fortunate because we paid a lot of people with stock. And when we did sell the company, they kind of weren't happy to get stock versus, a check
paycheck
in 2002. But in 2011, when we sold the company, they were happy as, and it was all great thinking and great planning. But it was luck. It was the luck. It was the situation. We didn't have money.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like calculated luck, right?
Yeah.
So it's and you hit on a few things that I love. It's who you know, right? You attach yourself to a mentor. And I love what you just mentioned. Do you have 3 other people I can talk to? Because networking is still a big thing today, right? Connecting with somebody in person, as I say, pressing the flesh, giving a firm handshake versus just connecting with somebody on LinkedIn online, where they don't actually, you don't actually get to know the person. You know their screen name or their name online, but there's a certain magic to it when you actually sit there and look somebody in the eye and talk to them and make a connection. I think that's huge. And I don't know that would ever go out of fashion. That would never get old, I don't think. So, I still do it to this day when I go to job fairs or veteran events. I've met people on the YouTube or, online but it's completely different. It's completely different connection. So I love that. Um, you mentioned pure luck, man, but what I'm hearing is it was calculated. Like
You make it. Yeah.
yeah, you make it right. So you had a drive behind all of this. So I've been around many entrepreneurs, and I mean, when something starts going bad, the panic starts setting in, and you're wondering, did I choose the right thing? Should I continue going on with this?
Yeah.
Um, and if you don't have that drive and that belief in what you're doing, it's gonna fumble. It's gonna fall all over the place. And it sounds like you did have that, which I do appreciate it. So talk to me about. We talked a little bit offline about a retreat that kind of shifted your mindset.
Yes.
I want to hear a little
Yes.
bit about that.
So, so with our 12-year overnight success, we eventually did sell it to we did the full entrepreneurial journey from, your own money to venture capital to we worked with a
Hmm.
private equity firm, healthcare focused private equity firm, and sold the company. That was 2011. And I did I'm going to try retiring, a little bit on the young side, but I'm going to try retiring. And as many people told me, it's a lot harder than you think. That when when you're used to going out making a difference and building things, that you could probably last. It's like going on a vacation. It's great for a week or two, but by the third week you're ready to come home. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
I would say 2011 really kind of moved on, and between 2011 and 2016 was kind of just trying to figure out life and figure out very much focused on give back for me and
Yeah.
charity work. Um, but it wasn't like running a business though. It wasn't like having employees. So you can say, oh, I want to help somebody and I want to support a charity, but how you support a charity is not in my DNA of like it's not what I did at the starting a
Hmm.
business. And so I always had this sense of I hope that what we're doing, I think what we're doing is by supporting these veteran charities, I think it helps, and I've met
Hmm.
some people it helped, but it wasn't very kind of hands-on and direct. So I had a thought in my mind that I am, and my wife was, please don't ever start another business. Or she wasn't like completely against it, but she knows how all consuming it
Oh
is.
yeah.
So you're like, well, if you're going to do it, maybe buy a business versus start a business, and that's a like
Hmm.
there's a big difference between buying a business and
There
starting a
is.
business. So she's like, maybe buy a business. So I had this sitting around in my head that, well, maybe one day I'll buy a business, and then the piece of I hope this give back stuff is really helping. And it was a day in 2017 where I went to the Boulder Crest retreat facility in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, and
Oh, that's a beautiful area.
it's a wonderful area and a
Yeah.
wonderful organization, and
Hmm.
it does amazing work, started by amazing people. And I was there for a company of Marines who were reuniting after coming back from, maybe they'd come back from Afghanistan 2 years before, and they were getting together. And I was one of the charities I was supporting was called Warrior Reunion Foundation,
Hmm.
started by a wonderful young Marine captain who I know, and he happened to have his reunion at Boulder Crest, and so I was there as a volunteer, standing in the mess line. I don't know if you know Mission Barbecue, Vic, but they're a
Oh
veteran
yeah.
friendly. Yeah.
Yep.
So Mission Barbecue catered the event, catered the retreat.
Hmm.
And I was, standing there, serving food and meeting, these 50 Marines one by one. Um, and the realization, like that couple of days together, and it was what was interesting about these Marines is Boulder Crest has these wonderful facilities that they've built, but the Marines slept in tents. So they didn't go in the beautiful building. They slept in tents. They didn't eat
Was
MREs.
that
They could.
was that by design, or was
That was
that
by
did they?
design.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but they wanted to actually, they wanted them to experience, they wanted to bring them back to actually living in a tent together. Like it was so, they set up
Yeah.
their cots and stuff like when they were in Afghanistan. So it was very real. It was very emotional. And I got to meet these folks, and just stellar individuals that, as you heard about them and what they did, and of course the Marines talk about each other, so you hear the other side of the story. And
Sure.
some of them service disabled, some of them missing arms and legs, some of them that weren't there. So we had the moms were there, and the sisters were there, the Gold Star families were there. And it dawned on me, and I had friends with me, that like, boy, are these people, what could really help these people as they're struggling, these Marines? A really great job and a really great company that is really oriented towards veterans. And IBM back in the day was kind of a club and a family, and people worked. I know my dad and his generation, talking about places they worked where there were families and they got them together. And there was IBM. We had a club. Like when I was a kid growing up in upstate New York, we went to the pool that was and the country club that was owned by IBM. And I was thinking to myself, geez, I wonder, where are the places that we could put them? All of these, every single one of these Marines is they got issues, and they got, we all have issues. There's certainly things they need to be supported through, but where could they end up? Like, what would be a good company? And then it dawned on me, well, why don't we just find a good company and buy a company and get them involved in that combines buying it. My wife is like buying a company. I'm thinking, well, I might go back to running a company. There's the purpose and the mission is there really clearly. And Vic, we hired that group of Marines. The first 5 people we hired were 5 people, like the five of the people we met there who were kind of struggling and looking for work. And we just hired them. We're like, guess what? We're starting a company. Welcome to the company. And they're like, well, what do we do? We're like, well, we're not completely, we're going to figure it out, but you're going to work with us. And that was the origin story.
That's amazing, man. So, you obviously had a partner, right, that you went into this with? Okay. No, it's incredible. And how many days did you spend out there at this Warrior Reunion Foundation?
I think it was a 3-day all in all, with a little bit of setup and a little bit of breakdown. But we did, one of the things that was really important to me, when I was there, and it all came together in my mind during a day, the idea of following up with these people. We followed up like immediately. There was no downtime. So it really kind of got launched right there in the Blue Ridge Mountains on a day in the summer of 2017. It was like, we're going to make this happen. We weren't quite sure what, but we had the general parameters.
And this was Wild Bill's, right? Like the thing right behind you.
This was it ended up being. So the company Wild Bill's was at the time. So it's a 23-year-old company now. So, go back a couple of years. It was been around for 15, 16 years. And it was regional and seasonal, small business, but it had, what I saw in it and we saw in it was, this is a really neat business that you could we were looking for something you could grow and expand. And the company had recently started franchising. And so we got involved as the Texas franchisee in late 2017, 2018. And we opened up and built out the Texas market. And from doing that, realized we could actually do this all over the country. So it was a 6 months of piloting of building out the model there. And then that launched us into kind of going national with us. But you're probably wondering, what exactly is it that we do?
Yeah, so I'm wondering a few things. Like, how did you decide on this one, on an old-fashioned soda pop? And then, what exactly do you do?
So it was a company that I had known about and just been tracking and thought it was interesting. And it was one of the example of, you see lots of very neat, awesome businesses that just take a long time to scale or don't scale. So it was just it was an interesting business, and I knew the founder and the team there. And when I said, geez, we have these Marines, and there was an opportunity in Texas, it just all came together, and it was really quick. So I had
Nice.
known of the company. I had followed the company. I knew the model. I had seen it out there. I knew, when I said when I went to Wild Bills and said, I'm looking to get involved with, starting a business, buying a franchise, and I've got these Marines, and the founder was like, well, we got an immediate opportunity in Texas. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 2 Marines in Texas. Like, let's just, it wasn't, I can't say, so there is the piece where you go back to entrepreneurs and say, show me your business plan. And it's something like 80% of the time, they don't have a business plan. So people talk about, oh, you have to have a business plan, but most people, a lot of successful businesses don't. I can't say that I wrote a business plan, but I had knowledge. It was bringing together a lot of knowledge, and it was a franchise. So, it was less risky than starting something from scratch. And we had the staff already there. And so we dove in.
So I feel like I've seen Wild Bill somewhere, like carried at like one of these beverage stores. You guys are in California?
We're in 30 states, so we're national, and we've also done events up in Canada.
Oh wow, yeah. I feel like I've walked in. I've seen that name before, so I'm sure I'll pick one up. I'll pick some up next time I go out, because I'm always at, like, I live near one of the beverage stores. Very cool. Would you say that your service in the Navy gave you any kind of push towards either entrepreneurship or just confidence and going into something maybe you don't know everything, don't have the full information about, but you have the mindset that you will succeed in any way possible?
100%. 100. So a couple things. One is, so life is also a bit of a process of elimination, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like you a lot, like, and I love talking to founders and hearing their stories, and it's very rare that somebody's born an entrepreneur, writes a business plan out, and starts a company. It's usually somebody poking around and failing at other things, and then just ends up almost in a corner. And so I would say my military experience was when I got done with that, saying, I do not want to be a career military officer. And if I don't want to be a career military officer, what do I do? I was fortunate in that, most officers leave, and almost everybody, I mean, very few, what percent make it to 20 years? It's not half. I don't think. So I had a lot of people who had left and done other things. So I had a lot of people to talk to. So I learned what I didn't want to do in the military, and I had a sense that I didn't want to work at a big company. And I was in the, you and I were in the Marine Corps. Being in the Army is a whole different level of a, big company experience from what I hear from my Army friends. So I knew I didn't want to be in a big company. I knew I could persevere and push through anything. And it was, making it through plebe summer, making it through the first year, making it through the academy, making it through those summer experiences. We did 2 weeks in Quantico, Vic. I don't know how you did it for the time you did it. I couldn't make it through 2 weeks. Like, 2 weeks was more than enough for me. Like, I didn't like, but by the time it was rough making it through. For Navy nuclear power, you have to go to nuclear power school. Then you have to go to prototype. Then you have to go to submarine officer school. Then you have to get so by the time I had gotten out of the Navy, I'm like, if I can make it through all this stuff and get qualified on a ship and then survive being in a storm, off the coast of Egypt, like, how in the world did all this happen? Well, it happened in little tiny things we had to overcome over many, many years. But it was the realization of I think I can do anything, but a big piece is being surrounded with the right, But my roommate on the submarine, if it wasn't for him, I never would have made it. Like, you realize you can push through a lot of stuff. A lot of it's who you surround yourself with. But I knew I didn't want to be I knew I didn't want to be a career military officer. I knew I knew that there were a lot of people who could help me transition. I knew that going to business school was a good transition, and I knew if I stuck with anything, I could probably persevere through it. I don't know that I could have persevered if I decided, oh, I want to go to medical school. Could I? Maybe I couldn't have made it through that. But thankfully that wasn't on my list of things to try. But boy, I think, and back to the people that we hired in out of Boulder Crest at that retreat. I knew, and the best thing about hiring veterans is I know what they've been through. I know when they describe where they were, the unit they were in, where they served, what they went through, and their friends brag, say, hey, he earned a Navy Cross, he earned a Silver Star, he has a Purple Heart. Like, who these people are deep down.
Yeah, absolutely. You do. And I love what you mentioned there just now. It is who you surround yourself with. Just yesterday, this whole week, I've been doing live streams, right, on the Green Logbook, right, a channel associated with the Military Retirement Podcast, and talked to a lot of veterans on there. It's all really a veteran community on there. And somebody had mentioned, it's like after he left the service, he went down some dark holes because of who he was surrounded by, who he was surrounded with. And I firmly believe if you have a good support system, a buddy or somebody who's there to kind of cheer you on, and that will 100% lead you in the right direction. I know it's happened for me. My wife is my cheerleader, right? And, fellow friends are my cheerleaders, other Marines that I talk to on across the country and outside of the country that I deployed with, that I served with. We still talk to this day. And, we push each other to do things, to do good things, right? And we kind of, as we do in military fashion, we joke with each other, hey, you're an idiot for trying to do this, don't do this, but, we tell it how it is to each other in an effort to push each other in the right direction. So firmly believe that having a strong support system is key in all this. And I'm glad you found it, man, because Wild Bills, it looks like it's doing good. I just went on the website and saw that you guys are all over the place. There's like, I put in my zip code and there's little dots all over the place. I mean, it's huge. It's all over.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm curious, because we have entrepreneurs. I've talked to other veteran entrepreneurs who are trying to start something, or at least soon to be entrepreneurs. What kind of advice would you give somebody who is looking to start maybe something from the ground up, or even get into a franchise like you did?
Yeah. So back to what we've been talking about having really good mentors. And somebody told me once, if you want to be successful at something, go find the people doing that thing and just hang out with them. So that's like also a mentor. That's a mentorish kind of a piece of wisdom. So find the people who are doing it and hang out with them. And that's kind of like, that is franchising. So, this is what we do. And we have, and we're a support network of people all doing the same thing, but in an entrepreneurial way. So I guess the biggest thing I would say is find people who have done the journey you're going to go on, and surround them. And I have found when reaching out to people, everybody says yes. I mean, it's rare. It's extremely rare, and particularly if you're reaching out to other veterans. And there's the number of times in my life that I've reached out and somebody hasn't helped me has been, you can count them on a hand. And there's usually reasons why. But like back to when I was starting my healthcare company, and I was at a presentation, and the chairman of a company called Physician Sales and Services, which was a multi-billion-dollar company, he was presenting, and I just fell in love with him and his approach to being an entrepreneur. And he was an inspiration to me, being a healthcare executive. And I walked up to him at the end and said, Pat, what you said really inspired me. I'm going to come by your office next week. I want to get time with you. And that was a kind of a gutsy thing to say to a guy who had, flown in on his own plane and had people surrounding him. And he's like, that sounds great, Mike. I'll see you next week. And I'm like, great. And I got his card and I went and met with him, and he ended up becoming, he said to me at the time, Mike, I've never invested in another company. I've only invested in my company. You can ask me 10 times and I'm going to say no. I'm willing to give you lots of advice, but I don't
Hmm.
do outside boards. And I said, Pat, how many times you say I had to ask? How many times do people ask? And he's like, 10 times. I'm like, what if I asked you 100 times? He's like, I'm telling you no. Guess what? He he did join.
Really?
So
Look at that.
yeah, so
Perseverance, huh?
he joined our board. But I think the piece is I really like, it was a genuine, everything about him helping out was very genuine. I saw in him like the things that he could help our company. And I explained to him, look, there's not a lot of people like you, Pat, and you really could help us. And we're very appreciative. And the
Yeah.
fact that you haven't done it before isn't a reason not to try it. And he did after that go on other boards. But he was really instrumental to my success. And it was, I met him and pursued it, and he gave me the time. So I would encourage people, you think you want to start a whatever, go find people doing that, and particularly find veterans doing that, and spend time with them. And everybody's, for the most part, willing to share.
Yeah. I found the same thing. I asked folks if I can get on their calendar. And most everybody, I mean, as long as I approach them in the right way, most everybody's very receptive of that.
Yep.
And I'm curious, Mike, do you are you serving as a mentor to other people these days? Now that you've
Yep.
gone through that, you're battle tested in this entrepreneurship, in this this whole arena. Do you serve as a mentor for others?
Yeah. So my mentoring has changed over time. So when I
Hmm.
had my healthcare company and grew my healthcare company, it was mentoring the the employees and the top staff there, and
Sure.
several of our executive leaders there went on to start healthcare companies. So it was neat. We did that company for 12 years. We had executives that were part of the thing for 5 to the whole 12 years, who went on to become founders and CEOs of other companies. So that was very rewarding. I then spent my time I did do a little bit of time in private equity,
Hmm.
as a mentor, working with private equity firms as a mentor to CEOs and managers, senior leaders in companies. And that was, going to board meetings and going to retreats and just being available for, it's almost like being a therapist,
Yeah,
available to
it
answer
is.
questions. And it was the case of, you can tell me everything I won't tell your investors. You don't,
Hmm.
there's things that they need help with. They don't want to go to the investors and say, I really need
Right.
help with I have a problem with my co-founder. So that was an interesting role. And then I've since, with getting involved with Wild Bills and spending time on kind of veteran give back and veteran entrepreneurship, it's 100% of my time now. And so, what back to the story of those four Marines who joined up with us, we eventually ended up, we now own Wild Bills, and we've grown it nationally. And initially, the model, those four folks I mentioned, each went out and opened a territory and ran it as an employee. And we mentored them, and we said, guess what? Courtney, you're going to run Sergeant Brown. You're going to run Tampa, and Staff Sergeant St. Cyr, you're going to run, and Sergeant Ortiz, you're going to run Dallas. And we
Hmm.
taught them, how to do basic, basic managing a P&L and hiring and using QuickBooks and using Pipedrive and tracking, so it was basically teaching them to be general managers. And then what happened with, how this, when the story really got interesting at Wild Bills, was when we realized that these folks who are out in the field running these markets as general managers, let's just make them franchisees. Like when we bought Wild Bills, there were several franchisees, and it would. But the idea of, well, why don't we just use that model? And we went
Hmm.
to the general managers and said, here are the choices. You can do this working for us, and we'll be your boss, and I'll mentor you, or you can be a franchisee. We'll teach you how to do bookkeeping. We'll help you start an LLC. You run the shop. You hire your own. You can grow it, and and
Yeah.
the benefit goes to you. And all of them said, let's see, work for the man, or be my own man. And we have a very our corporate team at Wild Bills, they're all in on the mission. Like, it's about
Hmm.
helping these. Initially, it was helping these guys guys and gals be successful general managers, and how to hire staff and train staff. But now it's like, you've built out a market. You built out Dallas, you built out Tampa, you built out Chicago, you built out San Diego. Now, you got to grow it, and our team will provide you with help on your finances, starting your company and getting your insurance, and everything. And they stood up as franchisees, and we've added a Marine in Tampa, and a
Hmm.
Marine in Dallas, and soon a Marine in San Diego, and now Air Force in Las Vegas, and Army in Phoenix. And
So,
but it's
so it really is just veteran run, right? I mean,
it's
that's who's doing this.
yeah. So we do have, we have some non-veterans on our corporate
Hmm.
staff, but they get the mission, and they understand what we're doing, and they're we had at corporate so far 2 people that we've hired who weren't veterans, who actually went and went in the military. So one was in our actually both one was in our finance department, one was in our operations department. The finance person, young guy, going to college, being exposed to our culture, ended up going applying for ROTC,
Oh,
and
right on.
then we had a person on our ops team. She had spent surrounded by this culture, working with Marines and Army folks and Navy folks, and actually enlisted. So
Very good. Very good. Give
the
her
folks
the
that we
push to want to do that.
yeah
So,
but a whole
question here.
100% orientation around kind of veterans, helping veterans, supporting veterans, hiring and training, putting them in groups, working together. So you'll find in most of our geographic areas, it's a couple of Marines working together, or it's a Marine working with a Air Force. But we are predominantly, number one is Marine Corps for us, then Army, then Navy, then Air Force. That's our kind of pecking order of service members.
Well, that's excellent, man. I mean, I do some volunteer work around here with veteran organizations around my area that are trying to help folks either find a job, or a lot of them, like homeless veterans that are
Yep.
looking for anything really to get on their feet again. So I truly appreciate that you're focusing on the veteran community, because many veterans have a lot to give, a lot of knowledge, perseverance, that can-do attitude, that they will get the mission done in any way, shape, or form. So I do appreciate that. I wanted to ask you, Mike, what's next for you, and what's next for Wild Bills?
Yeah. So I'll mention. So what we do, and you see
Uh-huh.
this is one of our stands. So the
Mhm.
business, it sounds silly, but it actually it
Is it a
works.
truck? Is it a
It's
truck
a
that I'm
truck.
looking at there?
Yep.
Okay.
So we have 50 units. They're not all like this, but
Hmm.
we go around the country at fairs, festivals, all kinds of events. Think Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. We're at the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally.
That's huge.
We're at San Diego Comic-Con. We're at New York
Mm.
Comic-Con. We're at the Ohio State Fair. We do approaching 500 events a year with 50 of these pieces of equipment, and we drive around and set up, and we serve premium craft soda. But the interesting part, the real neat part about our business is, you don't just buy a cup of soda, you buy one of our collectible stainless steel mugs. And so you can see the mugs on the, and we go to the event and get the license to co-brand. So when you go to you go to the Monmouth County Fair, you go to a county fair, we have the logo for the fair. We've done big barbecue events, and
Yep.
people buy the mug. It's commemorative, it's collectible. Yep, there they are. And if you're gonna go to a big barbecue festival, people are buying T-shirts, people are buying hoodies and hats. These last forever. They're stainless steel. We have our logo on one side and the Sturgis motorcycle logo on the other side.
Yep.
And when you buy the mug, you get unlimited soda.
I saw that there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get unlimited soda for the day. And then if you bring it to any other event that we go to, you pay $10 and you get unlimited soda at that event. So what's cool is I was in LA for a Comic-Con, and there I am in LA, and there's people bringing mugs from Laconia Bike Rally in New Hampshire. There's people bringing mugs from an event in Minnesota. There's people bringing mugs from an air show in, the Sun and Fun air show in Florida, or the St. Pete Grand Prix in Florida. People, I'm like, how did you get there? Like, I bring my mug because I know you're going to be here and I want to get my $10 refills.
Well, you know what? I think I need to get one of these mugs now too, because I go to festivals every so often. I'm sure I have passed by a Wild Bill's truck. I'm sure.
Yes.
So I'll have to look into one of these.
So I'll tell you. So what is next for us is COVID basically put us on the brink of going out of business, as you could imagine. So we were on track to do a lot of revenue in 2020, 2021 were really big years for us, and we essentially did zero. And so we were able to survive. We took all the actions you need to do to make it through. We survived, and all of our franchisees all made it through COVID. So it was a minor miracle. But one of the things that happened was during COVID, people said, "Where can I get the soda? Where can I get the soda?" And we said, "Well, we don't have any events, so you can't get the soda." So we started canning the soda, and that was 2021, 2022, and now we sell millions of cans of soda at restaurants, and grocery stores, and all kinds of food service, grocery, all over the country. So we have you went and saw our store locator. A lot of times people will go to the Gettysburg Bike Rally in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. They'll buy our mug, have our soda, and they'll say, "Where can I get it? I live in PA," and so we have the soda in stores nearby them. So the launching of the canned soda was kind of a big thing. Also, back to, we talked about luck earlier on. Do you make it? Do you earn it? Does it just happen?
Right.
We had never considered canning the soda. Never. It was just, when you have so many people, thousands of people reach out and say, "Where can I get the soda? Why don't you guys can it?" And then of all,
you kind of have to then.
Yeah. So people were asking, and then I'm like, well, I've never canned soda. We've never canned soda. My partner reaches out to learn about, how do you can soda? And we bumped into a Air Force Academy veteran who's like, "I have a plant," and I like, of all the luck, we're veteran owned and operated, and it's kind of a scary thing to do. And then having this guy who we trusted, who said, "This is what I do. I help brands can their soda." So we canned the soda, and it sold out. We were only selling it initially online, and then we realized, some restaurants reached out and grocery reached out, and so then we started selling it kind of in retail as well. So that's kind of new, and that's a new thing that we do. More important is we have, I mentioned, we took our mostly Marines and turned them into franchisees over the last 2 years. At that point, they flew out of the nest, and they were soaring eagles. They didn't fall on their faces. So it's like,
that's good.
Well, if we can do it with these, if these folks can stand up and in a year they're out flying, maybe we do more. And so, so we're focused. We will end this year with 15, 16 franchisees, and our goal is to add 10 more next year. So we have an ability to kind of bring
Okay.
on and train. And one interesting thing is we have several markets where we already do events. So we staff these events remotely from the East Coast. We fly our team out. We have our equipment there. So right now
Sure.
we go to San Jose, we go to Denver, we go to Portland, and we have equipment in those markets.
Mhm.
And we do shows there. One of the things when we find a franchisee, if we find them in those markets, we have those events that we can sell to them. We can say, hey, look, you can join. We can't just give them to you. These are events we found and we've been doing for years,
Right.
but you can buy them from us typically over time. So,
Mhm.
but we have those three markets that we're really targeted because we have events there to turn over. And then, most of the country is open, but I'd say, top states for us are Pennsylvania, Minnesota, North and South Carolina, Alabama, West Virginia, Washington State. Those are all states where we do events where we have to travel. So,
Yeah.
we're headquartered. We have our corporate is now located in Pennsylvania. We'll drive out of
Mhm.
Pennsylvania to service events, but it's the case that if you go to an event and you set up and people see this, promoters come to us and say, I have another event. I have a food truck festival. Would you like to come to it? I have um, these other anime, gaming, uh,
Yeah.
rodeos, car shows. So we've
Yeah.
done,
There's always something going on.
yeah,
You guys can be
yeah,
everywhere.
well,
So, question for you, Mike.
yep,
How, if I wanted to become a franchisee, if I wanted to become part of
yep,
Wild Bills, what is the requirement? Because I know there's probably some folks in the chat here who are listening. They're like, oh, okay, this sounds pretty good, right? I mean, I see people commenting on here about, B2B
yep.
businesses and all that stuff. If I wanted to become part of Wild Bills and wanted to franchises, what is the requirement for that?
Got the big piece. So we do a lot of discovery. We do
Mhm.
more than I think many franchises as far as spending time with people on the front end. And the reason why is
Sure.
because as I mentioned, our franchisees all made it through COVID. It was very hard to get them all through COVID.
Yeah.
And back to my healthcare company, our mantra was we get our customers and we keep our customers. And it's a lot easier to keep a customer than to cycle
Mhm.
through them. So we could grow faster and we could add a lot of franchisees, but we'd rather go slower and add the right ones. And the
Yeah.
biggest, it's going to this sounds silly, but it's true. Um, if you take our franchisees and we were just interviewing them for some social media content, and
Mhm.
um, they say, what do they say? They say, I love and the person on the camera says, tell me what you like about Wild Bills. And they don't say the soda, the mugs, the money, they don't say
Yeah.
that. What they say is, number one is, I love the people I work with. I love the mission. And then the second thing they say is, I love our customers. And so when we just had a group of folks we brought to Allentown, PA, where our corporate headquarters is, and just spent time with
Mhm.
them. And we showed them everything about the business and the equipment. We go out to dinner, and it's really figuring out, like, we do not want somebody to get in this and say, you know what, I don't really like working weekends. You know what, I
Yeah.
don't really like having to deal with retail. So it's a mutual discovery that's lots of, and you have to go to, like, the best case for us is somebody says, I'm a motorcycle rider. I live in Minnesota, but I see you
Mhm.
guys at Sturgis every year. And if they're a small business owner is a plus, but not, many of ours weren't. But
Right.
people usually start with, I just love what you guys are doing. I've seen it. I've known it for years. I have your mugs. I never knew there was an opportunity to do this in Minnesota. And then we're starting out with somebody, they know the model, they're a veteran, they know the mission, they buy into the mission. And then it's the going through, okay, let's look at the territory, let's talk about the kind of events, let's talk about the hours that you have to put in. It's weekend
Mhm.
work, like, and we have had people,
Yeah.
that came by and wanted to do this, and when you actually, you know push comes to shove, and the wife or the husband always gets involved. So it's never like, oh, I'm going to do this, and they'll be fine with it. Eventually the husband or wife is like, wait a second, like we're retiring, the kids are out of the nest, and now you're telling me I'm going to spend, however many weekends a month going to drag racing and steam, like a steampunk festival, like or a Renaissance fair. Like I'm going to sign up and do
those
8
are
weeks
cool.
at they are cool. So those are I think of our best events. Renaissance fairs are way up there. Steampunk is way up there. Comic-Con, anime, gaming, bike rallies. So typically when I'm talking to somebody who's interested in this, they're a domain. Like when our franchisees who've started and said, I see you guys at Comic-Con. I go to Comic-Con. I've been to New Orleans I've seen you guys at Fan Expo Denver. Like they're kind of, maybe it's a little cultish or cliquish, but you definitely know that like they love this stuff. They go to this stuff. They collect stuff. We're in the collection business, and they travel around. So it's like we have people that we meet. Back to this thing about people bringing their mugs around. There's people who this is what they do. Like their idea of a great time is take the family and go to Salt Lake City for FanX. Like they think that's like going to Disney for them. So a lot of it is, the do they actually like the business model? And then at the point of do they like the business model? And we meet with them and we go out to dinner and we have meals and we talk and we're checking each other out, and we want them to call other franchisees. Like, so you got to talk to other franchisees about their experience.
Communication.
Everything else, in my humble opinion, can get worked out. Like, it requires money to start a business. It requires money to start a franchise.
Right.
But there's money accessible through the SBA. There's money. We have in our franchise agreement, we have an ability to provide, we discount our franchise fee for veterans 50%. And then we can provide financing. So we can finance equipment. We can finance the franchise fee. We don't it's situation dependent, and it depends on, but there's a lot of things you can throw on the table and a lot of things you can work through. If you just meet somebody and say, and I can, say the people that we brought on, it's like, it's match made in heaven. They know us, we know them. They've been at events, they come to events, they've worked events. We like them. And the other interesting thing is when somebody comes out to like learn about us and go do an event, typically our franchisees are saying, never mind being a franchisee. You want to come work more events for me? Like, so we have, candidates who are like, do you want to go, we just sent a bunch of people we brought in a bunch of people to New York City in October for New York Comic-Con. It's one of our, you can imagine, it's one of the largest Comic-Cons and one of our large events. And we brought in a lot of people, and some of them, to work it. And, many of those people had been working for other franchisees, considering becoming a franchise. But the discovery piece of, is it a right fit? Yeah. And then I would say, at the point we say, they want to do it, it's educating on, when you come to Allentown and sit with us and you sit with the finance team and you sit with the sales team and you sit with the ops team, it's like, before you get into this, like, let us explain to you, this is the work that has to be done. This is what it's like. This is how we support you. This is how we don't support you. This is what you need to learn how to do. This is what we can train you to do. And everybody around on our side has to be everybody giving a thumbs up. If one person's like thumbs down, it's you don't want to start like that. And maybe the answer is go spend more time with that person, but we don't want somebody, we're not you see the model of franchises where they're adding, 50, 60, hundreds of units, and it's kind of a factory. That ain't us. Like we're bringing people, it's not a factory, it's a family. Like we're bringing people into the family and we're supporting them. And we have limited, we don't have unlimited resources either. So if we're going to bring somebody on and put the time, labor of love and attention, and we're committed to them being successful, we don't want to bring somebody in who may not work. It might just be the territory that they're looking at isn't good.
Right.
So we've had that happen where I know that it sounds like it would fit, but it's just, there are, like everything, there's variability. There's great markets, there's good markets, there's markets that people will struggle. We don't want to put somebody into a market where, or we have to define their territory in such a way that they have, a good chance of success. It ain't about taking a franchise fee from somebody. It's just not.
Right. And Mike, I got one for you, man. If I had decided to go into Wild Bills myself, I'll take this event here. If you haven't already got it, it's the Military Influencers Conference that goes every year, and it's just a bunch of veterans, military influencers. And they usually meet up in different spots. I think at one point it was in the last 2 years it was in Atlanta. So I'll be going to the next one. I don't know where it's going to be because I think they're going to change up the location. But the Military Influencers Conference, there's got to be like thousands of people that go to that thing. Like vendors, folks like me who have podcasts and YouTube and stuff like that. And I'd love to see Wild Bills at one of those.
Well, Vic, we'll do it together. So you make the intro, we'll do it. We have equipment in we have equipment in Georgia, and we'll get the right to make a nice co-branded mug with their logo and 2026 conference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Yeah. Let me write that down, man. We'll have to talk offline about this a little bit.
Yeah, no, this is how we get in, we go to an event and then we get into an event. So people see it. And we did in Philadelphia, there was the rowing regattas in Philadelphia, and somebody saw us at a county fair in either Jersey or PA and said, geez, I'm involved in the planning committee for the regatta. Would you guys make mugs for the regatta? And so, we went, and it was the championships. We also did the rugby championships one year.
Wow.
So, and we made, people have their Wild Bills mugs with, commemorative and collectible. The shirt will eventually, the t-shirt or the hoodie will eventually, get eaten by moths or fall apart from putting it in, through the washing machine. But our mugs are not going to fall apart.
A steel mug.
It's a steel mug with a great. I mean, if you put it through the dishwasher too many times, it might get, might ding it up a bit. But it's going to last for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome, man. I definitely look forward to getting more information and connecting with you on that. Mike, man, is there? I mean, we had the audience been kind of active here. Talking about just kind of throwing ideas about business. I think we have a lot of entrepreneurs here in the chat. Anything that you want to, and anything like your parting words, anything that you want to put out to the community on maybe words of wisdom, different routes they can take, and anything coming to mind?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is it's okay not to know. Like, and this ties into you think you have an outcome in mind, but you're really not sure how to get there. And what people realize is it's the journey, it's not the outcome. And so because it's the journey, it's okay not knowing things. Like how is it precisely going to work out? I don't know. Nobody does. And the truth is, it's kind of pointless to even think about it. You can have an aspirational goal, but it's totally fine going through your day and living in the moment saying, I have a general idea I'm going to go in this direction, but you bump into a random person who gives you a piece of profound advice that changes everything you thought. Like that's just the truth of it. So if you wake up and just say, I know I'm going to, in general, walk in this direction, and I'm going to be open, back to the piece of just being open to things and wanting to discover and learn and meet people and be genuinely interested in people and helping other people. Like the karma of life is that then something I do think the Seinfeld episode where he drops $1 out the window and $1 lands in his pocket. Like it's 100% the case. So, but it's okay. If I wish I could have, all the worrying that I did when I was starting my company, I wish I had put it in perspective. And people said, oh, don't worry and just do your best. But nobody said to me, well, if you just focus on the process you don't have to worry about the outcome. The outcome helps, the outcome will be kind of what it's going to be. And you don't really control that anyway. Which reminds me of like the best kind of advice, the very famous Steve Jobs speech, graduation speech, where he says, he says a version of the same thing, which is you can only connect the dots looking back. So once the whole thing unfolds, you can tell a story, but you can never tell that story any point during it because you don't know how it's going to end. So there is a big piece of you got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, or make it that the uncomfortable isn't uncomfortable. Well, uncomfortable is just life. Like I don't know if when we launched the soda in a can, we didn't know if it was going to work. We had no idea. We thought it would work. We were, the worst case is we were going to get stuck with 30,000 cans of soda, and it's like, well, it's not the worst. It's not the worst
case in
the world. We also thought, who's going to pay $9 to if it's going to cost $20-some a 12-pack, who's going to pay $10 to ship it? Like, we didn't know. And like, well, the worst case is we'll just sell it locally. But as it turns out, like, people from all over bought it and paid the shipping. So, but we didn't know. And there was only, there wasn't much use to worrying about it when we did it, because we didn't even know what to worry about. Which is kind of funny. Like, you sit and worry about all this stuff, and then when you finally figure it out, you're like, I was worrying about the wrong things.
Yeah. And I get exactly where you're coming from with all this. It's similar to like when you're leaving the military and moving into the civilian world, where you don't know exactly what you're getting into or going to get into. And you're super stressed about things. At least I was. Yes. But looking back on it, it's like everything was going to be okay. I was set up just right. Everything was going to be all right. And I didn't realize it then. But looking back on it, I realize it now. Yeah. So, Mike, we have a question here from the audience here for you, from Navy Cop MA1. How do you get your head out of imposter syndrome when starting a company from scratch? Any words of wisdom on that?
That's an excellent question. And so when I went to school after the Navy, I went to business school, and I was surrounded with really seriously successful people. I totally had, I was paralyzed with, I'm kind of not even up to par with these people I'm surrounded by. So I definitely had imposter syndrome. And I think part of the reason why I went into the healthcare industry is, Professor Herzinger said, not a lot of people do it. And so it's kind of a place where you can be a big fish in a small pond. And so my whole career was kind of like, well, going in a place where I can be successful because I'm not up to par with other folks. But then what happened for me is back to my mentor and back to the work that I was doing with meeting entrepreneurs. And I just met entrepreneurs and spent time with entrepreneurs. And when I was working for the insurance company, we did deals with like maybe a dozen companies that were small entrepreneurial companies that got business from this health insurance company. And I had the privilege of doing due diligence on them and looking through their financials and interviewing the founder and hearing the origination story. And after a while of doing that and meeting these very successful people, I'm like, I can't, from being imposter to me saying things like, I can't believe that these idiots could start a company. Like it was so profound. I'm like, if that person can start a company and they don't they know less than me. So I can remember very specific companies and very specific people that I thought, I cannot believe this person is successful, and I cannot believe they did it. And if they can do it, I can do it. Now, maybe that's not a very gracious way of a gracious answer,
but it is a real way of thinking. I think we've all thought of that at some point in time in our lives. Like, hey, if they can do it, I definitely can do it.
Yes. Yeah. So that's how you meet the successful entrepreneurs and realize that that you're not an imposter.
Excellent. Well, Mike, man, it has been awesome having you on. I took like a whole page of notes, man. I love all the nuggets that you put out there. A couple things, quotes and all that as well. Definitely look forward to potentially seeing Wild Bills at one of the events I go to. I know I've gone to Comic-Con with my kids in the past, and definitely with the Military Influencers Conference, we can talk offline a little bit about that too. I just added you on LinkedIn, or put a little connect thing on there, connect button. So please accept it whenever you get a chance. And yeah, with that, man, I truly appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Vic.
So you go, Mr. Mike Quilty. Yeah, he excellent conversation, a lot of knowledge, things that I never even knew, and veteran friendly organization, Wild Bills. I know I've seen these sodas around in different areas in different local beverage companies, right? So, or national beverage companies. So awesome information. A couple things that stood out to me. It's okay not to know. It's okay not to know. So in the military, you're not always going to know the information. And sometimes you do things like going out in the field, doing a stack stand table exercises, field exercises, and they throw things in there and you have to learn how to react to things. You don't always have all the information. You maybe have 75, 80% of the information, and then you have to try to figure out the rest of it. So it's okay not to know things. I didn't know how to start a podcast or a YouTube channel before I started doing all this stuff. You just kind of figure it out along the way, ask some questions, find answers, implement those things, and figure it out along the way. The journey, it's the journey, not the outcome. And focus on the process. Outcomes will be what it's going to be. Okay. I love that because that's exactly what it is. It's part of the journey, and that's half the fun right there. I didn't love everything about the Marine Corps, or at least my time in the Marine Corps. Like sometimes things sucked when you had to go out to the field. Sometimes things sucked when you have to stand duty or deploy or things like that. But you learn to enjoy the journey because there's no other way around it, right? Unless you just don't show up and then you're UA. But we're not going to do that. So excellent conversation with Mr. Mike Quilty. If anybody else in the audience has any other questions regarding what we're talking about, any other kind of veteran information, franchise information, business information, just post it in the comments below. Aside from that, thank you all for watching the Military Retirement Podcast. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. Reach Across America Radio Network on iHeartRadio. I believe we are on Friday nights. We're streaming this on the Green Logbook, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, all over the place. So just haven't figured out the Instagram thing yet. You have to have some kind of code on there, which I'll figure it out. It's part of the journey, right? I'll figure it out. Let me see. I'll go to the comments here really quick and then I'll sign off. Let's see. Navy cop, I think a lot of the pressure revolves around starting something that will have real consequences to your life. That is always in the mind. Yeah, that's true. Consequences like money consequences, relationships, stress on relationships, things like that. Whether it be, marriage or, relationships, if you're starting something with a friend or something like that. So there is a lot of real things, real consequences in life, but you'll never know unless you try it out. Let's see. We got Harley for Bill, Mr. Bill. Yes, great podcast. Truly appreciate it, man. I was only part of it. Mr. Mike was part of he was the other half today. Let me see. There you go. And that's why you carry liability insurance. Very true. Very true. Mr. Christopher Brown, CSP. That was a great conversation. Truly appreciate it. Yeah, Mike is truly knowledgeable on this stuff. Let's see. Other comments we got. And James, we trust 932. Great episode. Truly appreciate you chiming in, but let me see what else we got. Yeah, I think there's a lot of convos within the chat amongst yourselves. So I'm gonna let you guys take care of that. It looks like there's a lot of connections happening there. So truly appreciate everybody coming on. This has been the Military Retirement Podcast and the Green Logbook out here.